Some folks say racism is a shadow, it's there, but most of the time it's hiding behind a handshake, a smile, maybe even a signed check. But let me tell you, the day Charles Whitmore III walked into that high-rise boardroom in Atlanta and refused to shake my hand, the whole mask dropped. It was just a regular Monday, or so he thought. One more morning to keep the old game running. A little nod here, a snub there, no consequences. Yeah, that happened. But what he didn't know is I'm Elijah Brooks, the guy who built Omnivis from the ground up, and my patience for old money's little games ran out a long time ago. That morning, the sun lit up the marble floors like something out of a movie. I passed Mr. James, our janitor, who's been with us forever, and I made sure to ask about his grandson. The kid just made the dean's list at college, thanks in part to a scholarship we started. The front desk buzzed as Maria smiled and told me my daughter Camila was already upstairs, prepping for the biggest pitch in our company's history. Camila, she's 26 and already commands more respect than most people twice her age. She didn't inherit that, she earned it, same as I did, one day at a time. Inside the war room, my whole team was running hot, everyone on edge. This wasn't just another funding round. We were going after $100 million to take Omnivis global, open new markets, shake things up. But I told my people, today we're not just selling vision. We're testing character. We had a plan. I'd sit in as a nobody. Let Whitmore show us who he really was. Camila ran point, sleek in her blazer, briefing the team on Charles Whitmore III, the kind of man who's never had to answer for the way he looks at people. Old money from Connecticut. Every company in his portfolio run by folks who look just like him. Not interesting, Camila said. Intentional. And she was right. We walked together to the main boardroom. Through the glass, I could see Whitmore in his element, all silver hair and tailored suits, surrounded by his entourage. His handshake routine started. Firm grip for the guys he played golf with, polite smile for the ones he thought mattered. When he got to me, he just skipped over, like I was part of the chair. I stood, hand out, calm as ever, and he looked through me like I was invisible. He turned back to Camila, ready to talk business. You know what I mean? The whole room went cold. Camila launched into her presentation, laying out the numbers, projections, the whole 9 yards. Charles sat there, king on his throne, making small talk with his assistant, taking little jabs about demographic challenges and culture fit. You know the words. He called our clients urban inner city and said his investors preferred market stability. He looked at my suit, probably cost less than his cufflinks, and you could see it in his eyes. Not his kind of CEO. Halfway through, he made a show about the CEO's absence. Surprised your CEO isn't here for this. Said it with that tone, like he was teaching us a lesson about how the world works. My pen scratched in my notebook, deliberate, slow. Could someone ask him to stop with the notes? He snapped, like I was an intern who didn't know his place. The rest of the room, they just watched, silent, but not surprised. That's when Camila turned the tables. She smiled, stood up tall, and said, Mr. Whitmore, I believe you've been ignoring our CEO for the past hour, my father, Elijah Brooks. You could hear a pin drop. Charles's face went pale, mouth open. I stood, hand out again. Shall we try this introduction again? He just fumbled, eyes darting, making excuses. Had I known your role, sure, if he'd known, he would have put on his best face. But the truth was, he didn't think respect had to go both ways. After that, I took over the meeting. He tried to catch up, but every question he asked about our tech, our markets, I answered point blank. Camila pointed out what he'd missed in his so-called due diligence, details anyone who'd really cared would know. You could see the cracks forming in his composure, the old confidence unraveling with every answer. The meeting ended, and he tried to save face, pulling Camila aside to discuss protocol. My daughter wasn't having it. Anything you have to say, you can say to her CEO. He pushed, some conversations are better at certain levels. I looked him straight in the eye, told him to his face, let's give you a real look at how Omnivis works, a week-long immersion, every department, every level. You'll see for yourself. Camila was shocked, but I wanted him to see, really see, what he'd been missing all along. That night, over dinner at Edison's Soul Food Kitchen, I told my team the plan, show Charles everything. From our coding academy to our outreach programs in the neighborhoods he'd never drive through. Let him see the kids he'd written off, the engineers he'd never imagined leading billion-dollar projects. Marcus, my CTO, asked, "What's the end game?" I smiled. "He's going to face every assumption he's ever made, and he'll have to do it in public. His reputation depends on it now. Sometimes you let a man dig his own grave. Sometimes you give him the shovel." Next morning, Charles started the tour, awkward, stiff, watching as Dr. Kesha Washington, MIT PhD and head of engineering, walked him through innovations he could barely grasp. Our lead AI architect, Marcus Chin, showed him tech that would make Silicon Valley jealous. At every stop, Charles tried to frame what he saw as inspiring opportunities for people he assumed couldn't succeed without a handout. The team, mostly black, brown, and female, didn't need his charity. They were running the show.by lunch. Charles was making patronizing remarks he probably thought were harmless. In the afternoon, in the design studio, a Latina designer showcased an award-winning interface. Charles called it colorful. The room went silent. In the startup incubator, a 16-year-old girl demoed an app that had already won a national competition. He patted her shoulder, told her to keep reaching for those stars. She smiled and told him Google wanted to buy her app. He didn't know where to look. Every move he made, Camila watched quietly, recording on her phone. She knew we'd need receipts. That night at Marcel's, Charles drank too much wine at dinner with our diversity team, told tired jokes, questioned our dress code, called professional women girls. By the time he got back to his hotel, his assistant Thomas was warning him, "You're misreading the situation. These people are the real deal." But Charles wouldn't listen. He still thought he could steer the ship with the right PR. Over the next days, Charles saw more. Quantum labs run by women half his age with more patents than most universities, community programs he called admirable. Kids teaching him what real innovation looked like. At my house, over dinner, I finally laid it all out. My mother, Clara Brooks, cleaned the Whitmore mansion for 15 years. She'd saved every penny so I could build this life. Charles paled when he realized he'd eaten breakfast served by a woman he never even saw. "You wouldn't remember," I told him. The help was meant to be invisible. The real twist came when Camila got an email from Charles's daughter, Helen. She'd left the family years ago over her father's policies, and she had proof. Memos, emails, all the ways Charles had systematically kept black founders out of his portfolio. Camila wanted to go public right away. I said, "Wait. Let him make his speech at the gala first. Let him show everyone who he really is." The Four Seasons ballroom was packed. Charles strutted on stage, talking about progressive values, cultural alignment, how Omnivis was remarkable, almost surprising. You could feel the tension, the way his compliments stung. Then it was my turn. I told the room about my mother, about what success looks like from the other side. What Mr. Whitmore calls unconventional, we call merit. What he sees as an experiment, we call excellence. The applause was thunderous. Helen stood in the back, tears streaming down her face. The next morning, Camila leaked the emails. The media tore Charles apart. Board seats gone. Partners vanished. His own assistant quit. And for the first time, Charles had to watch as his old world fell apart, not from some outside enemy, but from his own actions. He called me, desperate. I met him at the community center, the same place he once lectured kids about bootstraps. This time, I made him listen. I told him, "You spent your life building walls and calling it opportunity. Now, you adapt, or you get left behind. The world's changing, with or without your permission." Days later, I stood on stage with my daughter and Helen. We announced the Clara Brooks Equity Fund, $500 million for founders who'd always been shut out. Camila took over as CEO. Her time wasn't coming. It was here. Our story ended with a standing ovation, a photograph of my mother on the podium, and the sense that something had shifted for good. But here's the thing. Is that real justice? Or just one win in a system built to keep so many out? You tell me. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Where's the line between justice and revenge? Between changing a system and just swapping who sits at the table? Because I promise you, this story isn't over. And maybe, just maybe, that's a good thing.